Yeah, me too. Seriously. Yikes. Jeez. So, honestly, key takeaway from this game, listen, listening to the Raptors feed is getting really annoying. And all I'm hearing is, this incredible praise of guys who are hitting shots and an incredible detraction of guys who are not making shots. And I think that there's a sort of misguidedness here. If I'm the Magic coach and I'm seeing how my team is playing, how inspired team basketball they're playing, all right, there's a great comment. Your boyfriend Scottie lost this game. Well, let's get to that. Scottie Barnes and OG Anunoby combined for 14 shot attempts. Now, I will agree that Scottie was very passive tonight. Almost looked like he had no interest in being there. And I gotta say, like, that was not a good game from Scottie Barnes. Not great defense. Not dude, you are not a Raptor fan. I love that. Thank you, T-Man. Thank you for your insightful comments. Dude, I don't think you understand. Like, I have followed this team for 20 plus years. I'm not a bandwagoner. I just want good basketball. Like, I want great basketball. Absolutely I do. Yes, I do. You know what? Here's the thing. You win a championship with a coach, the coach becomes un uncriticizable. That's not even a word. But saw it happen with Doc Rivers in Boston. Now I think obviously I'm a big Nick Nurse fan. I'll just lay that out there. And Gregory, hey Gregory, man, sorry, I'm getting a little bit distracted with all these comments. Scotty's a defensive liability for this team. You know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. He hasn't been great defensively at all this year. He's negative defensive box plus minus. He has not been great. To call him a liability on defense, that is probably a joke. He's a 69th percentile defender. There's a lot more to defense, scheme related, than just, being a point of attack defender. You do have a 6'9" guy who weighs about 240 pounds guarding quick point guards. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of players on this team that could share a lot of blame for defensive liability right now. Noble Venom, are the Raptors buyers or sellers at the deadline? Whew, sellers, sellers. Last year they were buyers, right? They had a hot streak going into the trade deadline, and obviously, um, they decided to buy into that core and they decided to bring in Thaddeus Young. This year, I don't know. I think, despite his recent play off the bench, I think Gary Trent Jr. sort of the writings on the wall. He can't be too pleased. This is not a role that he envisioned for himself. And granted, kudos to him for taking it professionally, right? But um, the writing is sort of on the wall here. Um, why is Nick Nurse giving Fred VanVleet so many minutes? That's a really good question. Well, I think this comes down to trust, right? You got to understand. I want to explore this. I want to explore this, and please, somebody out there, don't be chicken shit. Come on, just come on. Like, how many Raptor creators are giving you an opportunity to literally come on and have a conversation uncensored? Like, come on, just take the link here. I'm going to post it again for you. Somebody take the bait here and just come on and have this discussion with me. It would be so much more fun to have this with two people talking. Um, to the point of specifically Fred VanVleet and Nick Nurse, this relationship. Look, I think it comes down to identification. I think that has a lot to do with who you are, what appeals to you as a human being, what story appeals to you, right? Scottie Barnes, his story appeals to me a lot. I've been following Scottie for 5 years. His entire background, his family, everything, like his trainer, everything about him, his aura, his mentality, everything is very much in line with mine. Nick Nurse, Masai Ujiri, their mentality is very much in line with guys like Fred VanVleet. And I mean, look at it. Nick Nurse spent how many years coaching in Europe, coaching in the G League. You don't think he has a bit of a soft spot for someone who went undrafted and worked his way to an all-star? You don't think he develops a bit of a blind spot? Of course he does. Masai Ujiri was sleeping on couches as a scout in 2002, and he worked his way up to this. You don't think these guys see Fred VanVleet with rose-colored glasses? Of course they do, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. There's a sense of identification. Look, if you've ever interviewed for a job, okay, let's see here. Barnes should be off the bench too. Oh, that's a hot take. Um, should Scottie come off the bench? I mean, I think it might even help him, to be honest. Oh, we have somebody. We the North cap. All right, we're gonna bring somebody on. Just as a reminder to everybody, if you come on and you swear at me or you say something racist or derogatory, you're getting booted. But this could be a fun exercise in this. All right.
Hello?
Hello. Hold
Hello?
on. Hey man, give me one sec. All right. Hey man, who are you? And introduce yourself to us.
My name's Darren.
Darren. How are you,
Yeah,
Darren? My name's Robert.
I'm good, buddy. Hey, I ain't gonna lie, I like clicked on the link by accident.
You clicked on the link by accident?
Yeah, bro, I'm not gonna hold you. Like I started, I'm like, yo, what is that? And I
All
clicked
right.
on it.
Well, you don't have to stay. You can leave. But what'd you think of the loss tonight? Did you watch it?
I didn't even see the game. I looked at the logs.
Shit. All right, man. Thanks for tuning in. All right. We got Tim here. Tim, you got a mic?
Yo. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do. How are you doing, man?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm good. All right, just 1 sec. It's this.
You just want to say
I'm
what?
just gonna mute this tab here.
Okay.
Sorry, it's just. All right, there we go. I don't have a cam, but
that's all good.
Yeah, I was just saying. I guess Fred, the field goal percentage, man. He's chucking up too many shots. A little bit of hero ball here. What do you think would be like a good trade if you were to throw him into a trade package?
I don't know how you trade him right now. To be honest, he's on an expiring contract. He's an undersized point guard. He's not young. He's going to be 29 this season, right? Shooting the worst percentage of his career, and probably not going to be happy coming off the bench for somebody.
Right.
Can you name me? I can name you 16 point guards right now that are way better than him. Pardon? I don't know what you trade him for, to be honest.
I would have to agree.
So like this is. Go ahead.
Yeah, you probably don't.
I mean, honestly, like I would look at a team like the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm just not sure what they would give up. The Chicago Bulls probably make some sense. Maybe for a young prospect, if they feel like a homecoming for Fred VanVleet. I know he's from Rockford, but the Chicago Bulls could make sense if they want to maximize whatever they have with DeMar DeRozan, and DeRozan would definitely vouch for him coming to Chicago. So I think maybe that's the deal. If you could trade him to somebody. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I think Chicago makes sense. I think it's just as Chicago probably should be buying in here.
I mean, they're a lottery team, right? They're a lottery team right now, and would Fred VanVleet bridge the gap? I think Lonzo's a better player personally. Like I think he's a lot better, but he's not healthy. So, if they want to toss away Kobe White, Patrick Williams, and I don't know, fillers, do you do that? Honestly, here's a problem that I have. Okay, I was talking to a rival Eastern Conference scout, and I was talking about my fantasy of having Fred and Pascal traded. Now I know some people in the comments could be like, Pascal's the only reason we were in the game tonight. Honestly, Pascal and Fred are the reason we had the game that we had tonight, in my opinion. It's just it is when people don't touch the ball, they fall out of rhythm. Basketball is a game of rhythm. So, I really liked how the Magic played, but he said they like Fred VanVleet too much. You're stuck with them. That's what the Eastern Conference scout said to me. So, to anyone calling for a Fred VanVleet trade, I unfortunately think you're stuck with this guy. Michael says I'd take Caruso for Fred.
No, that makes sense. I think Fred's definitely an untradeable guy right now.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think maybe if there's a silver lining here, it's that he's definitely
I don't see them giving up Patrick Will and Kobe White.
Kobe White hasn't been great for them. Patrick Williams hasn't been great or healthy for them. I think, if you're all in with DeMar DeRozan, he's not getting younger. Maybe you roll the dice. If you're the Chicago Bulls, you retain his bird rights. If you trade for him right now, or I think some semblance of his bird rights, you can at least re-sign him. I don't know. I guess it depends on how the Chicago Bulls see themselves. Adam Lou says, I think we should trade Fred VanVleet, Siakam, and get rid of Nurse. Wow. Oh my God. Yeah, well, look, I'm not a proponent for getting rid of Nurse or trading everybody, but I really like Earl Watson. I'm going to throw that out there. I really like Earl Watson on the bench. All right, Tim, thanks a lot for tuning in, man. Do you got any final thoughts? Final questions?
Hey, no problem. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, man. All right. So to the point of what really went wrong tonight. Look, I listened to the Raptors feed. I try not to, but I had to. And we had I'm gonna add the link in the comments again in case anybody wants to dial in. And all I heard was Scottie Barnes criticism. I didn't hear Fred VanVleet criticism from Jack Armstrong, right? I didn't hear why is he taking this shot with OG Anunoby in the corner, right? That's troubling to me because if you watch this game, I think, yeah, there's a fair amount of criticism that you could heap towards Scottie Barnes and saying, he just does not look interested in being out there in the offense right now. He doesn't know his place. And you know what? Look, maybe I'm biased, and I'm sure some of you would say that I am biased, but I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. He's working his ass off after the games, before games. I see everything that his trainer is posting. It's not like the guy doesn't want to be, getting better. I think that I understand from his perspective, how does one get better in an offense like this? It is frustrating, to see him. We got Raptorized coming on. All right. Raptorized. You got a cameraman?
I don't, my man. I don't.
All right, no worries. Introduce yourself. Who are you?
Hey, man, I'm just a guy from the six, man. I like your vlog. Like I said on one of the comments, I've been listening since Basketball Zone, And so I just decided to come in, man, and talk some raps with you.
Nice. Did you watch the game tonight?
Of course I did. Yeah.
Your thoughts?
I got a lot of thoughts, man. I think that they need to run a little bit more of that offense through OG. That's one of the biggest problems that I see happening right now. I see that he's burgeoning this year. He had the right this offseason to say that he didn't think that he was getting enough burn. He didn't think that he was getting enough touches. And I kind of feed into what you're saying. If we can get Siakam to move the ball a little bit more and include some of the guys a little bit, namely OG, I think that we can run a more efficient offense. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. Remind you, your name again?
Raptorized.
Your name is Raptorized? You got a different name? Or you want me to call you Raptorized? All right, Raptorized. Are you familiar with the concept of game within the game? Is this like in your wheelhouse?
Oh, absolutely, man. I play ball just like you.
Sweet, man. Like you play point?
I play pretty much every position, man. I'm kind of one of those guys. I can take the rebound and dribble it up the court.
Can the Raptors sign you to a 10-day? They like positionless basketball. They love positionless basketball. Look, so what? So my thoughts on the game within the game is that it develops at a pretty early age. Most young hoopers, they sort of like learn it, right? And I think like a lot of guys who learn the game a little bit later, there's a lot of guys like this. Nick Van Exel is an example of a guy who picked up the game a little bit later. Hakeem Olajuwon's a guy who picked up the game later. Pascal Siakam, guy who picked up the game later. These guys don't seem to have a great sense of the game within the game. And what I mean by the game within the game, and you can absolutely correct me if you have a different interpretation of it, but it is like all the other stuff that has nothing to do with what's happening with the basketball, specifically going in the basket. It's like sometimes you see like a superstar like Kevin Durant come out and he'll pick and choose his spots. He might take two shots in the first quarter, even though he has good looks. He'll move the ball to his teammates because he wants to get his teammates activated, right? And as he's getting those teammates activated, suddenly the offense is becoming a little less predictable. And so in the third quarter, fourth quarter, when his team is down or his team needs him for like that big push, that's when he can exert all that energy. And suddenly, if he doesn't have it, it's like, he can move it off. The other thing I would say is like,
hold on, no, let me piggyback on.
Go ahead.
We watched Zion do that the other day.
Absolutely.
We watched that very thing play out with Zion. He was letting his teammates get involved. I can't remember all the names there's a lot of young guys on that team. I can't remember the
Dyson
names.
Daniels, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy.
He let them do their thing. And then when the game was on the line, he just took that thing and ran with it, man. And I respected that game. I respected that victory by New Orleans because they did it the right way. They played the right way. He got those boys, that coach got those boys playing the right way right now.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And for all the shit that Zion has taken for being out of shape, being selfish, and all that stuff, I love him. I think he's a great player, and he played point guard at a very early age, and you can tell. Like, he took on the entire team, and you can tell he has a sixth sense for understanding where his teammates are, and it's scary, man. It's scary. That team is scary. Their draft capital and their young and by the way, who's your favorite rookie this year? Was it Paolo?
Yeah, I do. Between Powell and the guy Mathurin, I like Mathurin.
All right, I'll tell you who my favorite rookie is. Dyson Daniels. People, I love him. I think he's so good, man. Like, honestly, last year I loved Herb Jones. Like, last year my three favorite rookies were Scottie, Evan, and Herb Jones. And this year it's just like Dyson Daniels. I like what Ben Matherin's doing. I'm coming around on Paolo. I still hold out hope for Jabari, but man, Dyson Daniels is sick. Like, he's a pro level defender right now. If that shot ever comes through, like, he has like incredible passing. His defensive metrics are off the charts. I say he's like already one of the top 15 to 20 wing defenders in the NBA right now.
You listen to him talk too. You listen to him do interviews, and you would think that's CP3 out there, man. He's got a cerebral kind of vibe to him going on, and so I like those guys. I think that's what we need. The Raptors need a little bit more of those heady kind of players,
Absolutely.
And I don't know, like with Nick Nurse, the thing is that I'm not sure why those guys down the bench aren't getting looks. I guess I said this in one of my comments too on one of your posts on one of your vlogs. I said this, man. I'm not sure if like it's just that he doesn't trust those young guys, but I think he's got to start using some of those guys a little bit, or if he's just trying to solidify his rotation right now and just go with the vets, or what he's thinking right now. But why not try a Doughton? Why not give Flynn a little bit more burn? Why not mix these guys in? Because those guys could give you what you need, like a little bit more of that cerebral player, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like, to your first point about giving OG more burn, right? Like, the only time this year that I've been okay with this offense is when I was seeing a lot of it running through Thad, OG, and Scottie. Because those are guys that consistently look for other guys. And even when OG is mismatch hunting in the post, he's still willing to take on like a second defender, note it, and pass it out.
Yep.
Pascal, it's like Pascal and Fred, it's like when they make up their mind, Gary, Boucher as well, these four guys, when they make up their mind, this time down, I'm scoring, they're going to score. It doesn't matter if a man is underneath the basket, and makes the offense very predictable. If I'm an opposing coach, like I think Leo Routens mentioned it today in the post game, he said, it might have been him. It might have been somebody else. Someone correct me in the comments, but basically said it's like the Magic knew that one guy couldn't beat them. Like, they knew that, we'll settle with Pascal Siakam taking difficult, turnarounds and floaters at the rim, and we're going to activate our whole team, and we're going to bank that this one guy can't beat us. And everyone else is saying, like, people who don't play ball, they're like, all right, well, you can't blame the guy who had 30 plus points. You got to blame the guy who had 6 points, 2 points, 1 point. And it's like, you got to understand why those guys had 6 points, 2 points, 1 point, right? You got to understand why, people are quick to say the Raptors don't have a bench. Well, there was a guy riding the pine last year who, last I checked, is leading the league in 3-point shooting, which is Yuta Watanabe. Could have played him a bit last year, right? He was a solid defender, good switchy guy, really good dude, passes the ball a lot. He's low usage. So it's like, I think Nick Nurse, if he's getting criticized right now, he deserves it, and honestly, like, who do you like between Doughton, Flynn, and Banton?
You know what? Right now, as we're speaking right now, I think Banton out of the three of them is going to give you the most. He's going to provide you with, he's going to tick the most boxes out of the three. But if you're going to take a flyer on one of the three of them, for me, it's Jeff Doughton. I think we've seen the ceiling for Flynn, to be honest with you. We know what he's all about. Score first, pass when he's in trouble, kind of one of those kind of guys. But with Doughton, he seems like he's unselfish. And I think and he's more of like a captain, a true point guard. And I think that's what we need more of on this team. Guys who are unselfish, who are willing to play team ball, who aren't looking for numbers specifically per se, who just played for wins. And I know I actually piggyback kind of a lot of what you say with Scottie. I think that's Scottie's number one priority. Even if it doesn't look pretty out there all the time, he's just about winning. I like that point that you made about him not being afraid to take that half court shot. Give me the ball. I'll take the shot. No problem. I'll take the the blown shot on my stats. It doesn't matter. It's about winning. I have the opportunity to maybe score this 3-point and give us 3 points. So yeah.
And he hit one last year, so it's like it's not a 0% shot, but it is a winning play. And I always look for these small things in young players.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, are you willing to take that dip? And not a huge Banton fan, right? Like he's taken a couple of ill-advised threes with the clock running down at the end of the game, and I'm not a fan of that shit at all. I didn't like it when I was playing when another team would do that.
Yeah.
And if one of my teammates did that, I would probably like throw something at them in the locker room. But I will say that I agree with Jeff Doughton. I think he's a game manager. I think that this team really has 3 guys who are capable of game management. And I think that's Thad, Scottie, and Doughton. I think those 3 guys, they have a cerebral sense about the game. OG is coming. OG is coming. A couple passes he threw this year are like, what the hell did I just see from him? Is that a no look? He's getting better at it, and it's quick. He's a quick study. But last year he was making those passes; they just weren't on target. So I'm really happy that he's gotten into that experimentation mode. He's only 25.
Mm-hmm.
I think his ceiling is, it's coming. Like with him, it's coming, and I think with Scottie, it's coming. But with the rest of these guys, it's just, look, this was a doom season to begin with. I mentioned it in the summer. You have 3 guys who are gunning for contracts. And you have an offense that cannot stop them from taking whatever shot they want. That's going to be trouble, right? Gary Trent Jr., Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, these guys, 3 guys all believe and bet on yourself. There's like, I know it's Freddie's term, but it's like they all should be brand ambassadors for his merch, because they all do it, right? So it's like, yeah, Pascal is the most efficient of the 3, so you're not going to criticize him because he's, shooting a good percentage, and Fred VanVleet's a bum right now, but Fred VanVleet making 2-3 more shots tonight is not going to change my opinion of him at all. Like I was talking shit about him after the Lakers game. I'm talking shit about him now. It's like, it doesn't change. Like, I don't care. It's the type of shots you're taking. It's how you're helping your team.
Yeah. No, I mean, for sure. Like, and I mean, I don't think that, like, I hear everybody calling for trades and this and that. I don't think that's going to happen, actually. I think that they're just going to ride this, just like Masai always does. Masai's going to sit back. He's going to evaluate. He's going to take him and Bobby, obviously. They're going to take their time and systematically build this team. I think year over year is when you're going to see the changes. And also to that point, I don't think that we're going to stay in these doldrums. I think that we're going to
Raptor eyes, we're losing you on the mic, man. We're having some interference on your mic. You got some? You got your hand in front of you? Okay. If you want to come back on, try come back on in a bit. We just getting audio feedback issues, man. All right, let's take some comments here. All right. Not trading Barnes and Fred VanVleet for KD will be the reason why we never win a chip with this core. Bro, if you think you're winning a championship with Kevin Durant and OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam, you're crazy. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. And honestly, like, trading Scottie, like, right now, even if you had done it in the summer, you are trading 10 cents on the dollar for what this guy is going to become now. You can say that I'm, I don't know, man. Like, I'm getting kind of sick of hearing that, like, I have some inherent bias for this guy that I can't. Which bum is ranting about Pascal? Oh, that would be me, Nav. Thanks for your comment, man. Jesus Christ. Thank you for saying that. Why put your top 5 in a situation where they're going the bag and promote selfish ball? Honestly, man, it happens in every industry, right? Like, I don't know if any of you are 90s kids and you watch Smart Guy, but the reason that show ended is because they had every cast member was being paid the same. And the minute one of them decided that, hey, I'm the star, why am I not getting paid more? Money interferes with chemistry a lot, right? So if you're not a team that's willing to come out and say, like, look at what the Pistons have done, right? They've said Cade is our guy. There's now no confusion between Cade and Killian, Cade and Sadiq Bey. I mean, maybe guys are resentful that the guy that's your guy isn't really playing and isn't playing really all that well, but at least you've sort of announced it to the world, right? This whole egalitarian, like, the ball is going to find whoever it's going to find. No, it's not going to find, because the people who are naturally selfish are going to be naturally selfish within your offense. And the people who are naturally team players are going to keep making the right plays. Like, yeah, there's a couple times tonight where I'm like, Scottie, just take it to the hole, like do it, just go for it, right? You could just take this shot, but it's like somebody's got to move the ball, right? The last time we played the Magic, Scottie Barnes in the post game, he said he was happy, he was smiling, right? I want to say something here because I think this is a point actually worth making. Scottie was really happy, right? He wasn't the team's leading scorer that night. He was just happy. He said everyone's happy on days like this. The ball touches everybody's hands. So he's pretty transparent about how he wants to see this team play. And that's how I want to see this team play. And if you know basketball, that's how you should actually want to see this team play. But what happened with Fred VanVleet? He wasn't that happy after the Orlando game, was he? Because he didn't shoot well, right? But Fred VanVleet was super happy after the Lakers game, man. He was like joking with the media. He was talking trash to the Lakers. Draymond Green has a term for this. It's called front runners. Is it front runners? Yeah, I don't like front runners. All right, Augustine, we got somebody here. Augustine, man, how are you?
It's Augustine. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah. So the other day there was. How you doing, man? How you doing, Robert?
I'm great, man. How are you?
Well. So getting past the niceties, pleasantries. The other day, Joe Wolfond was on the Will show, and he kind of gave the kind of less rosy-eyed, more objective view of what's happening with the Raptors.
Okay.
And you had Casaro and Casaro was basically given a positive account where the Raptors are struggling a bit and they should have they're a top 4 team, etc., etc. And Wolfond kind of said that these guys basically brought the same team back from last year. They brought the same team back from last year with little additions here and there, and the additions really haven't played. And to expect this team to kind of be so much better kind of unrealistic.
Well, they're a game below 500 right now. And last year, if I remember correctly, they were 15 games over 500. So they're not just not better than last year. They're considerably worse than last year. Also, every one of these players that you had last year in your lineup was young, right? Relatively speaking, Fred VanVleet should still be getting better at 27 years old last year. Pascal Siakam has taken a massive leap up. Scottie Barnes should be getting better. OG should be getting better. Garrett should be getting better. I mean, this is what the Raptors pride themselves on, internal growth. That's what we hear about, right? And also, the Raptors lead the entire league in returning players, 13 players coming back. That should present a very positive benefit to your win-loss in the early part of the year, in my opinion. That always helps teams continuity because there's a lot of teams that are adjusting to new guys. Like look at the Hawks. They're having DeJounte Murray come into their offense. That's a new ball handler. Trae Young has to play a completely different way. So the reason that the Hawks are struggling, I understand that. But the Raptors being as bad as they are right now, and yeah, early on in the first 7-8 games, the schedule was brutal. I understand that. But they played 500 ball through the brutal stretch. It's losing games like tonight. It's losing games like OKC. That's a problem, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, Nurse is losing the team a bit, I think. Nurse is losing a team a bit. I think it's starting to happen right now. At least a bit. It's happening. I think we can't, kind of ignore that. That's part of it.
Okay.
The other part of it. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So,
well,
I mean, sorry. You want to go ahead?
I have a question for you. So if you were in the locker room right now, let's say you were one of those guys, Jeff Doughton, Delano Banton, Malachi Flynn, etc. You got your own contract, right? You got your own career, your own future, and you've been sold that these guys are playing because they are the best hope of winning, and you're watching them go out every single night, take ruthlessly stupid shots, and chuck up 5 for 13, 2 for 12 nights. How do you feel right now? Would you be wanting out? Would you just feel deflated going to practice, or would you just be like,
I mean,
optimistic?
the players are not playing, right? We're not like really developing. I've always I've been dubious of Nurse as a development coach. I mean, yeah, he played Precious last year, but we really never developed like the guys at the margin. Yeah, Precious came in. He was like basically the big prize from the Lowry trade. So he was kind of forced, and he had to play, obviously Barnes. But we haven't really developed guys. We're not doing a lot of development, and this team is kind of stuck between developing players and at the same time winning. And Nurse
You don't think OG's
much
developing?
more focused on winning. I mean, OG's has been developing, but he's been developing over a number of years, and he started under Casey, right?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, Nurse
Yeah.
was still here when OG got drafted. Nick Nurse was an assistant,
true.
and you know, look, I think here's the thing. This is just my opinion, and I'm not basing this on any insider knowledge or anything like that. But I do believe that to some extent that Nick Nurse feels a certain obligation to the guys that came up with him. Okay, the bench mob, guys like Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam. Not only do they completely remind him of his own journey, being guys who were sort of slept on, who had to work really hard to get where they got to. I mean, let's not like pretend that Scottie Barnes didn't have to work hard to, but he was a lottery pick, right? He's supposed to be great. But these underdog stories, maybe, and I don't know. Nick Nurse's hiring was very complicated because they interviewed him, and then they interviewed a whole bunch of other people, and then they interviewed him again, and it took a really long time to hire him. And I'm not sure if behind closed doors, if Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet didn't absolutely go to Masai Ujiri and vouch for this guy. Just my opinion. Is there a sense of I owe these guys for giving me my big shot, and I'm going to ride with them come hell or high water? Because I got to tell you, this is not the first season this has happened, right? I mean, I got to ask, like, how many shots does Delano Banton miss? And then, if he has a bad game, he's glued to the bench like for the next 6 weeks. Right,
yeah,
he doesn't.
It's crazy. And then the other thing is Nurse calls out a lot of guys in public. I'm not sure if that's just given human nature. Do people like to be called out in public all the time? My father always said, criticize in private, praise in public. Nurse does the opposite.
He's not the first coach to coach in public. Yeah. Phil Jackson's done it. There's a lot of coaches who've done it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but my complaint is if you're going to do it evenly, right? He's always talking about how Scottie needs to do this, Scottie needs to do that, Malachi needs to do this. Precious, Chris Boucher, Gary, he doesn't fit us. But I've never heard anything about Fred. No, I've never heard anything but excuses for Fred. And I think that, at some point, these guys have sort of bet on each other, right? They're like a package deal at this point. Honestly, I think identification has a lot to do with things as well, right? Nick Nurse was a 6'1" point guard, right? Played very similarly to he wasn't like extremely pass first. He was a shooter. He wasn't nearly as good a shooter. Maybe there's a part of him that just sees so much of what he wishes he could have been in Fred that, look, we all develop concepts of what we think good basketball should look like, right? When I was growing up watching the Chicago Bulls play, I developed a concept for wanting long wings and big guards who were off-ball guards because I watched Ron Harper. That's just sort of my mantra. So now anytime, if I was a GM and I was building a team, I would build a team. I don't think I would build a team with Chris Paul. I would build a team with Drew Holiday. I would want bigger guards, right, who can move off ball. I would love Marcus Smart, guys like this. But, if you grew up with this idea of little point guard runs the offense, that's just, you have a blind spot to that. That's just the way you learn the game. I also think that, coaching in the G League has probably created some sort of ideas for Nick Nurse about, swapping lineups and playing, janky defenses and all sorts of this stuff. So I think a lot of that stuff shows, there are some, stories of Kawhi Leonard just sort of tuning him out while he was here. I think there was one specific story where he started talking about something that he did with the Iowa Energy, and Kawhi just blurted out like, "This is the NBA, man," and he just walked out of the locker room. So I don't know, but
one thing I wanted to say, this team, they have so much analytics, they're so smart. They're a lot smarter than us. I'm a fan. I'm not that knowledgeable. I'm somewhat knowledgeable, but not, just a regular fan. But Wolfon the other day, he was saying so they're shooting they're 29th in true shooting percentage at 54.7, right. And they're 28th in opponent allowed true shooting percentage at 59.4, which is the largest gap between allowing the highest or the second, third highest field goal and actually shooting the second worst field goal percentage. And this gap, so somehow their defense is still top 10 because they force turnovers, Wolfon was saying. And then they also do offensive rebounding. But then the issue is we always know that offensive rebounding doesn't translate into playoffs. Forcing
Usually
turnovers doesn't translate into the playoffs. The teams will find out. This is a kind of gimmicky defense.
I agree.
And the
completely.
issue is if you have so much analytics, you see the numbers, you're like, wow, we suck at shooting and we suck at defending the shot because they don't defend at the rim and they don't defend corner threes. So if you're setting up a whole system and a whole pattern of behavior and a whole habits around a gimmick defense, and offense on offense, what one was saying, like, so on offense, we're like the 4th highest team in taking isolations, and we're like the 26th or 27th team in isolation efficiency, which means like we rely on the worst type of shots. We rely heavily on the worst type of shot. It's like I don't play soccer, but or whatever. Let's say not soccer, but I don't ski, but I like to go skiing every day or something. That's a poor analogy, but basically doing something that you're not good at and making that your whole bread and butter.
Let me put it like this. I think, and by the way, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but you just said that you're a cat, like you're not a very knowledgeable fan. I think you said that. I think you're pretty knowledgeable from what you're saying. Like, I think that's a fairly advanced, idea that you're talking about, playoff and regular season differential. But I'll say this. A good offense to me is like the Boston Celtics. Now, I'm not just saying it because they are technically on pace to become the greatest offense. But if you watch the game, did you watch the game, Boston versus Toronto?
I watched half of it.
Okay. All right.
I have two little kids.
Oh, okay. So basically what a great offense is supposed to do, and I think this is, for all 111 of you who are tuned into this right now, this is something I've been wanting to say, and maybe I'll make a video about it at some point. I liken good offense to bop it. To anyone who's played the game, bop it, twist it, turn it, right? That's what a good offense should do. A good offense should force a defense to make several decisions, sometimes 10, 12, 13, 15 different decisions on one play. You do that by moving the ball. You do that by relocating shooters. You do that by setting picks. You do that through a lot of different ways. You do that by running in transition, right? So basically, what a good offense is designed to do is it's designed to force the defense into making a mistake. Now, obviously, you make a mistake against the Boston Celtics, boom, Jason Tatum goes back door, or Jaylen Brown gets an open 3, or Al Horford gets a clear lane to the basket. And that's exactly what a great offense is supposed to do. And most defenses, most even average defenses, will make one mistake out of every 4. This is like 75% of the things they're going to react to correctly. Like a guy cuts, the guy trails, another guy cuts, his man loses him, boom, right underneath the basket. So a good offense should be able to, in a 24-second clock, maybe generate 4 opportunities. And at the end of the clock, when you haven't generated a great opportunity, you maybe have a superstar who can take a really tough shot with the clock going down. My issue with the Raptors is that tough shot with the shot going down, the superstar fading away, etc. That's what they're aiming to do. That's their first, second, and third option. So if you're wondering how their true shooting percentage is so low, it's because all those shots that Jason Tatum, Zion Williamson, Ja Morant, all those shots that those guys take as a last resort in their offense, that is Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr. That's their bread and butter. And that's why they get nothing easy. Pascal Siakam gets nothing easy. If you look at his analytics, his shot quality is absolute horseshit. Everything else is good for Pascal Siakam. His defense is somewhat average this year. I know some people think that, I'm being an asshole for saying that, but it's true. I've looked at the numbers. It's pretty above average defense. And I think he's capable of much more than that. His passer rating is great. His creation metrics are awesome. Everything is good except for his shot quality and his true shooting percentage. So really, it's so sad that this team is playing this way. And someone is going to look at this half-court offense being 30th rated and 29th or 30th rated true shooting percentage and say, oh man, they need more shooters. But look at the shooters you actually have and how well they're doing in this offense. Is OG Anunoby a 31, 32% three-point shooter? Hell no. No, he's not. Otto Porter is a career 39 point something three-point shooter. I think he's shooting 32 or 33% this year. Yuta Watanabe last year, where was he? 32, 33%, 34%. This year he's 56%. Now he won't keep that up, but my point is pretty simple. It's this offense does not generate good opportunities. And
do they have an offense? That's a question. Do they have an offense? It feels to me, to the untrained eye, it feels to me that they have this kind of a freewheeling read and react. Well, this is the term that people use: read and react. See what's going on and react to it. Which is to basically state there is no really structure, there's no really schemes. The offense is this kind of like, let's pick out a perceived weakness, switch, and try to go at that weakness. But that doesn't seem to me to be like a kind of like a hierarchical, an offense that has a hierarchy, has a structure. It doesn't seem to me to be that kind of offense.
Well, I mean, have you ever seen Pascal Siakam attempt fewer than 10 shots?
I mean, no, because
so there is a hierarchy, right? That's the big. That's the big myth.
There's him and then Fred.
Exactly. Those are the two guys. Those are the guys. Look, when you come into an organization and your general manager, coach, president, your trainers, your assistant coaches are all saying these guys are your leaders, right? How do you argue against that? I know Thad Young pushed against it a little bit. Last year when he came, he had some ideas and he brought some fresh perspectives. Look, I think one thing that you will say, you said that we're not developing guys. And while I think that the skill sets are being developed, I don't think the game habits are being developed properly. And I will say that I went recently and I watched the Raptors championship run. And I got to say that so much of the credit for how well that team played comes down to like three guys. Marc Gasol, well, actually four guys. Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green. Right. Of course, I'll add Kyle Lowry into that mix. Pascal Siakam played well. There's a lot of guys who deserve credit, but those four guys and the fact that those 4 or 5 guys were the leaders in the locker room, it had two effects. Number one, team identity, team culture was to pass. Right. The Raptors, I think, were top 10. The year they won the championship, they were top 10 or 11th in the league in assists. This year, they're nowhere close to that. That's because Kyle Lowry was a game manager and not a selfish player, right? He might have been a selfish person in a lot of ways, but he's not a selfish player. He played the right ways and an excellent game manager. Marc Gasol, the epitome of unselfish. Kawhi Leonard, yeah, he was a shot gunner, but he knew how to pass. He came up the right way. He was coached the right way. He knew how to get off the ball, get easy looks. You saw very often Kawhi just dive backdoor, get an easy layup at the rim. He got easier shots than Pascal gets right now. And I just realized we imported all of those guys. We didn't groom any of them. We didn't draft those guys. Those were all guys that we brought in from other teams. They had been coached by national teams. They had been coached by other coaches, and they brought that to our play. It's not like Thaddeus Young was drafted here. He obviously came, Thad Young, Otto Porter Jr., even Scottie Barnes, really, like he's come up through the Team USA program, Florida State, like he's had a lot of really good coaches in his life that have taught him the right way to play. I don't think that this strategy of taking raw basketball athletes, that Masai has this vision of doing that, and then just trying to turn them into great basketball players, I think that can work to a certain degree. You can up their skills, you can make them better shooters, you can make them better rebounders, better athletes, you can do a lot of stuff. But I don't think like that. I think that part of the game that needs to be taught at a young age about how to actually play basketball, like the innate, the inner notions of space. And, OG Anunoby is a great example of a guy who just consistently does the right thing. You'll see him, he'll be in the corner, and the minute a pass is made, he'll shift himself 4 feet, just to create a better angle. It's intelligent. It's very beautiful.
I know you're saying there's diminishing returns.
Absolutely. Are you a soccer fan?
I was when I was younger, growing up.
When you were younger, it's like Leo Messi, right? Like what Messi did today, against Netherlands. It was just like it was a masterclass, right? Like how he just really just sees the game so well, and that's just something that's innate, but it's also learned through thousands of hours of tape. I just think that it's something that's really missing. This is one of the dumbest teams in the league. Chris Boucher, no offense, love the guy. He works really hard. Just one of the dumbest, shot selections, basketball IQ, place and pace. He doesn't know where to be
at certain times. A bit of arrogance with the front office. They have had some success, and now they're a bit set in their ways. They're not open to change. They're not saying, wait, listen, maybe we haven't done well. since the championship run or since maybe the year after. And we've made some mistake, and maybe there's a need for a change of strategy, change of philosophy.
I think there are certain players who make up for a lot of deficiencies, right? If you have a guy like Kyle Lowry, right, in a lot of ways he's like a coach. He's very much like a coach. He will be a coach someday. He has a lot of those elements. When he's on the court, he's a game manager and he's a leader in your locker room, right? So when he's there, your team plays a certain way. When he leaves, suddenly you have you have a completely different offense, different structure, right? And yeah, Scottie Barnes made up for some of that, but he's not anointed to the level of Fred, of Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam to be able to lead, in the locker room. Anyway, Augustine, thank you so much for dialing in. I really appreciate it. To anyone else who wants to dial in, I'm gonna put the thing here. Dial in. Okay, Hamdi Yusuf. I mean, look, I think Otto could make a really big impact in a good offense, but I don't think he's going to make much of an impact in this offense. Number one, I don't think he's going to play enough. Number two, I don't think he's getting enough touches, man. Like, I think you need to look at his usage. Like, your highest usage guys are the ones making the most decisions in your in your offense, from who's getting shots to who's making, to what shots they're getting. So banking on guys like that, okay, yeah, Precious Achiuwa, great. Another guy who has terrible shot selection coming in when you already have too many mouths to feed, like, great. You just found something that's working off the bench, with Gary Trent kind of being the lone, Gary Trent and Chris Boucher being like the lone chuckers on the bench. Now you want to add Precious Achiuwa to that as well, So Jay, personally, I think that Otto Porter in the right situation could be a huge, huge contributor to this team. But okay, let's see. The Udoka thing is kind of interesting. Masai and Ime, do have connections that go back. I mean, they're both they're familiar with each other for sure. But I don't think that I've addressed this in a mailbag episode once. Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment not probably going to take on the baggage that comes with. Look, the Toronto media would never let you hear the end of it if you hired Ime Udoka. Every single question would be about Ime, his checkered past, etc. It would be such a distraction. So, as much as I respect Ime Udoka as a coach, I mean, I don't think that's happening. I don't know if that's sarcastic. I mean, to be honest, look, some of you have been saying that this channel is turning into a bit of a complaint board. And look, I hear that. I don't want to be saying what I'm saying about this team. I love this team. I mean, it's hard to watch them sometimes, but I do. Like, I'm a Raptor fan. I'm like you guys. So, like, I want this team to play well. When this team plays well, I'm there, happy. But my determination of whether or not this team is playing well is not about whether shots are going in or whether they're winning. I don't give a shit if you beat the Lakers. You played like absolute horseshit and you beat the Lakers. Like, I don't care. If you play great and you lose, I'm cheering. My end result is not, if Fred takes 12 good shots and they all clank, I'm happy. If he takes 12 bad shots and they all go in, I'm pissed. Like, so at the end of the day, I am all about the process. I don't mean to quote Sam Hinkie here, but like, I am about like the process of taking the right shots, because I do believe that good habits, they are what trail you in the playoffs. And typically when things get stressful, people turn to bad habits. They turn to bad habits they developed in AAU. They turn to, bad habits that they have just like sort of instinctively, they go into that ISO mode. And look, if you are a fan of 2000s, 2010s basketball, and you have ever rooted for a team with guys like Carmelo Anthony, Joe Johnson, man, the frustrations that I probably have with isolation basketball. So I'm not afraid to criticize. I know that a lot of people, I've been seeing a lot of slander, to be honest. Let's get real, guys. Like, I've been seeing a lot of slander and a lot of, negative comments about me, and some of them get like very, very personal, and for the most part, I leave them up. Like, I don't believe in censoring people. There's only like one person that I've ever Two people that I have completely just hidden from the channel or removed from the channel for the most part. It's like, it is what it is. This comes with the breaks of posting your, if I had the right, if I had the privilege to share my opinions publicly, then I have the responsibility to take whatever comes back with that. And since I'm saying stuff that's probably not very popular, and like, I've been that way my whole life, there's a lot of things that I've said that aren't very popular, and I gotta be honest, I'm not tooting my own horn here. I've been wrong before, but usually the things that I'm saying, like, they tend to be right, like, just not then. Like, they're right like 3-4 months down the line, then everyone just kind of forgets that you said it. So you just keep taking a lot of abuse, but in your back of your mind, you're like, I was right. I was right about Fred, right? Like, last year I was criticizing his shot selection when he was, gunning for an all-star team, and he was making all the shots. I was like, these are terrible shots. It's not going to work. Like, it's physically impossible for a guard that does not finish well in the paint to put enough pressure on the teams. And I saw the teams they were playing, but people were like, Freddie All-Star, and I guess it's a little bit frustrating. What you're doing only complains to the emotional fan. What you're doing is basketball journalism. Thank you, Gregory. Sometimes I'm not sure if what I'm doing is really journalism. I've been a journalist before, and I got to be honest, like, I think I'm way too emotionally involved at this point to be a journalist at all. Like, I think I've lost all journalistic integrity when I made that low light film of Fred VanVleet. Yeah, I don't know, but I am from the bottom of my heart, I am being honest about what I see, and I'm trying not to take cheap. I'm not trying to take cheap shots at people. I have a lot of respect for anybody who worked hard enough to make it to the NBA. It is a really difficult thing. The amount of work that Fred VanVleet, a guy who is basically like an inch taller than me or my height, the amount of work that this guy had to put in to make it to the point that he has, to get a Division I scholarship, to make it out of Rockford. I have nothing but respect for Fred VanVleet, and yet nothing but absolute disdain for how he plays right now. So, it's complicated. The Raptors have even broken Will Lou. That's tough to do. Look, man, honestly, here. I'll say this: the Magic are not as bad as their record suggests. All right, like, this was a very, I don't want to say it was a very predictable loss, but if my phone was not so bright, I would show you that I actually bet on the Magic to win tonight, because to me, this felt like this is a team that's feeling itself. They've got a lot of talent. Bol is so much better than people think he is. Paulo is turning into a really good player. Franz has incredible ball skills. This is the exact type of defense, like long defenders, like big defenders. Markelle Fultz, one of my favorite players. Like, I am rooting for this guy so hard. So I think at home against one of the worst road teams in the NBA, the Raptors are now 3-10. They are officially, I think, one of the top 2-3 worst road teams in the league. I think, like, you don't need to panic about this, right? If this had happened in Toronto, I think maybe, okay, that's crazy. The Magic came into your building, and beat you. But to those people who were saying, while the Raptors were losing in Pascal Siakam's absence, and to be honest, they were 5-5 in his absence, just to put that out there. So all those people saying, like, oh my God, they suck without Siakam, like, just to throw that out there, they're 5-5. Those people were saying that these problems in their offense are going to magically go away when Siakam comes back. I hope you understand that you just lost to the Orlando Magic with Pascal Siakam in your lineup. So there's no excuses now, right? It's very difficult to make excuses for this, right? Now, I think it's probably a good thing. In the long run, this loss may be a good thing. It may prompt some very serious discussions, within management, about the long-term future of playing this way. That could be the only sort of takeaway that I could say, that maybe that's a positive. That, maybe if you look, here's the thing. Here's what I was a little bit afraid of when I saw the Lakers, scratching AD and basically bringing the G League team to north of the border, and I saw Magic next 2 games. I was like, oh my God, Fred VanVleet's going to put up like 50 points in one of these games, and suddenly everyone's going to back off of him for a month, and he's going to be above scrutiny. And I don't want that to happen, because I need this offense to be fairly criticized in the media. I need Will Lou, Blake Murphy, all these people that are making excuses for him right now. And like, a lot of you say that Will Lou is critical of Fred. Listen to what he is saying. Like, actually listen to it. I would love if he's watching right now to come on. You know, there's 118 people watching. I doubt he's watching, but if you know him, get him to come on right now. Let's have a discussion, because this guy is framed as an all-star. Every conversation has been like, he's an all-star. Look, man, Jamal McGlure was an all-star. Theo Ratliff was an all-star. Antonio Davis was an all-star. The next year, they didn't come in to their team and say, okay, give me 20, give me free reign over the offense because I made an all-star team. Everyone understood why those guys made an all-star team, right? Fred VanVleet made an all-star team last year. This is not me throwing shade, okay? Because Pascal Siakam was injured. Because Lord knows, if Pascal Siakam was not injured last year, he is the Raptors representative at the All-Star game. Fred VanVleet made the All-Star team because Kyrie Irving couldn't play. Because if Kyrie Irving was playing, let's be honest, the numbers that he would have put up, the assists, he probably would have been voted in, to be honest, right, by anti-vaxxers. So, and flat earthers. He's got a big audience, right? There's a lot of people who would have voted for him. So, look, at the end of the day, I gotta say, like, if you're approaching this guy like he's an all-star, if he was actually an all-star, let's say, let's swap it. Let's say he is Dame Lillard. Let's say it's Dame Lillard who is in this shooting spell. I will be the first person to say, take all the shots you need, bro. Take all the shots you need, Dame Lillard, because you are an all-star. And you warrant that level of respect because you are that level of talent. But Seth Curry, no, you could sit. Seth Curry can sit, right? Fred VanVleet, you're not Dame Lillard, right? You're not Steph Curry. You're not Derrick Rose in his prime, as much as you want to be, right? So at the end of the day, I do respect Theo Ratliff, FYI. No shade thrown to Theo Ratliff, but he was a token all-star in an Eastern Conference that was completely depleted of centers. Okay, he was not like, I would be very upset if I found out some old school story of Theo Ratliff going up to his coach and saying, give me 20 shots a game because I'm an all-star now. If Fred continues to shoot, he needs to replace his minutes, was finally nice to hear. The problem, okay, I'm going to address this. Thank you. Okay, it's almost like I'm having a conversation with Lou without actually having to talk to him. Okay, if Fred continues to shoot this way, you need to replace his minutes, was finally nice to hear. That is only if, this is distracting from the point. This is the problem right there. This quote right here, Devin Patterson, thank you for sharing this. This is the problem right here. It's not that he's shooting poorly. It is not that he's shooting poorly. It is the shots that he is taking. Okay. He's not taking open shots. Okay. I did that film breakdown because I heard Nick Nurse say that 10 of his shots were good shots, and I could not let it stand. And what happened the next day? Fred VanVleet addressed it in the media, and he said, well, after looking at the film, some of them weren't as open as I thought they were. Bro, none of them are as open as you think they are. You are a 6-foot guard who cannot gain separation, who possibly has hip and back issues. You're not going to gain separation. Defenders know like what you're doing, and most of them are bigger than you. Markelle Fultz is not Drew Holiday, but he is a big, athletic, young, twitchy guard. He can stay in front of you. Bol is not Dikembe Mutombo, but he is 7'2", and you are 6 feet tall with a 6'2" wingspan. This is physics. This is not me slandering Fred VanVleet, bro. As an undersized guard, I have so much empathy. I tried out for a G League team once, and I got pinned to the backboard on the second play. It was a wide open breakaway when I got up, but pinned. So I have a lot of empathy for undersized guards. I understand, the grind that guys like Isaiah Thomas, Fred VanVleet, TJ Ford had to go through to make it. I get that. But at the end of the day, you are missing the point if you think the problem is he's missing shots. It's not that he's missing shots. It's the shots that he's taking. It's who and how he is disrupting the offense. It's how he's setting up his teammates. And no, I don't give a shit about 5 assists, 6 assists, 8 assists. He could have 12 assists. It's game management. There's a lot of fantastic game management games that Kyle Lowry had where he had 3 or 4 assists. It's not about dominating possessions. A player who dominates possessions better have a great deal of skill. Okay, skill and force. Okay, if Steph Curry dominated the offense, quite frankly, he'd be a lot less effective. But one guy who does dominate the offense, like Trae Young or Luka Doncic, these guys are elite threats to score in the paint, score on threes, fadeaways in the mid range. They are complete offensive packages. You cannot You cannot, and I repeat, you cannot have a guy dominating possessions the way Fred VanVleet does unless he is an elite offensive package. And Fred VanVleet is not an elite creator. He's not an elite finisher. And right now, the one thing that he was elite at last year, and I would say elite, yes, elite-ish, was the deep three and three-point shots. And that's not elite right now either. So yeah, like this is yeah, look, man, look, at the end of the day, okay, I'm gonna throw a shout out here. Some of you guys, if you are interested in like some of the stuff that I'm talking about how I'm worried about Scottie, check out this channel called Stunted Growth. Shout outs to Stunted Growth. If you ever see this, I'm a really big fan, JC, of your channel. He goes through all these prospects who, you know, for one reason or another did not make it in the NBA, and they were all really talented. And I got to tell you, a lot of it came down to the situation they came into. And I am just sick and tired of seeing players like Scottie, you know, come in with a world of potential, a world of talent, and just have them be mismanaged. This team is not perfect. Okay. This management team is not perfect. They are very good, one of the best in the league, but they are not perfect in terms of their judgment of players. They have let go of players. They have passed on players in the draft that were very good. You know, in the past, the Raptors have, you know, they made a decision between Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter. In terms of, you know, yes, you can say, you know, Tracy left, but he left because the writing was on the wall that they were going with Vince as their franchise player. But if you saw Tracy McGrady play in his second year, you saw the passing, you saw the defense, you saw the elite potential. I think it was not so clear who was the better prospect between these two. But, you know, you got to sell it to the fans, right? I think if you make the mistake right now of building around the wrong player and you try to develop Scottie into this screen and roll, you know, hustle big who just, you know, at least 4 times tonight, I saw Jack Armstrong criticize him for wanting to take a three. Are we developing or are we not? Is he shooting better from three this year or not? I think it's pretty stupid to be okay with Fred VanVleet shooting 32% from three and be critical of Scottie Barnes, a developing 21-year-old shooting 32% from three. Why is one of them settling and the other one is taking, you know, great shots? I just want to understand that. I think it's pretty, you know, batshit crazy. And the problem is that, you know, thousands and thousands of fans listen to these broadcasts. And if you listen to this broadcast tonight, you're not going to walk away saying that Pascal Siakam was, you know, Hamdi, honestly, feel free to disagree. I don't really give a shit, to be honest. I think he has it. I've watched a lot of great players come up and emerge, you know, and I see how Scottie approaches the game. You know, you could say what you want about his shot, his athleticism, but the great equalizer among all NBA prospects is the brain. It's how they see the game. It's how they see themselves. It's how self-aware they are. Scottie knows every single mistake he's making as it's happening. You don't need to tell him. And trust me, I know this. Okay. Like, I know this about him, is that he knows every single defensive assignment that he blows, every single shot he should have taken that he didn't take. He's not delusional about things. He knows that he's having like not the greatest year, and he understands that this offense is not necessarily catering to him having a great year. So he's just continuing to work on his development. And trust me, man, this guy put in hundreds, if not thousands of hours this offseason into developing his handle, his passing, his shooting, etc. And I'm telling you, in a different system, in under a different situation with better health, is would be coming together in a big way. And despite all of his struggles, he's pretty much on par with last year. Yeah, the defense has slipped a little bit, but the offense is actually a lot better. So, you know, Jack Armstrong, Alvin Williams, all these guys, they, you know, Will Lou, whoever, they can say what they want. I know what I'm seeing on the court. All right. Yeah, he's 21, bro. Like, I mean, for real. And I think, look, if you understand like being a tall player playing point guard, it's not easy. Okay, like it's not easy. Like the ball has a far greater distance to travel, and frankly, like he is a natural point guard. He's played point guard since he was in grade 7. I always snicker when I see, you know, media types in Toronto who haven't followed Scottie for 4 or 5 years, and they just act like this is some center, you know, raw prospect that they imported from South Africa that is, you know, like they're trying to form him into a point guard. Bro, he's been a point guard since grade 7. Okay. And he's played that position since grade 7. And he understands that he needs to develop his handle, and he's working on his handle all the time. This Fred VanVleet thing is such a Simmons parody. Ben was never under any scrutiny until they started to lose. Everyone finally realizing how shitty of a point guard Fred VanVleet is now, only because we lose in games we shouldn't be. I mean, that's the issue, right? if you keep winning games, granted, you're winning against the Orlando Magic, the Indiana Pacers, the Thunder, whatever, is people don't seem to panic until the numbers that they look at change, right? So you walk, like, I'll tell you right now, if he makes 3 more shots tonight, let's just say that all the shots he took tonight, all the shit shots he took, all the contested twos, all the dumbass, decisions that he made tonight, if he just made 3 more shots, I guarantee you 90% of the people criticizing him right now wouldn't be saying shit. And that to me is a very big problem with how we are reading the game as a fan base. I mean, bro, it's a make or miss league. Like Michael Jordan had games where he shot below 40%. It's not like he's a shit player because he shot below 40%. Yeah, he didn't shoot consistently below 35% for an entire year, but like you get my larger point, right? It's not about the shots that he's missing. It's the shots that he's taking. Here's the thing. I was asked the other day by a friend of mine who is he's very close to the team, and he asked me, he's like, bro, you don't like this team so much, tell me, what would you trade? And I was miffed. I was miffed at an answer. I didn't know what to say, and I kept saying, like, KD, I want KD. And then I thought about it after we parted. I thought about it for a while. And one trade that I would really love to make is with the New Orleans Pelicans. They have a lot of young players that I really like. And I don't know how they feel about CJ McCollum for matching salaries. But, man, if we can get Dyson Daniels and Herb Jones and a contract, even if it's JV plus fillers plus Jackson Hayes, etc., I wouldn't mind giving them Fred and Pascal. Now, that might be a hot take, but, man, Herb Jones, like, you have no idea the type of defense you could build and the type of offense you could build with 4 unselfish guys like Scottie, OG, Herb Jones, and Dyson Daniels. I would pay to watch that. I would pay for season tickets immediately. To get KD would be Barnes plus. Look, honestly, I hope. Look, I love KD. I love KD since since he was in high school and I was watching his high school mixtapes. He's been my favorite player for a long time. I would not be happy if we traded Scottie for KD, and I wouldn't be okay with that. I have no idea if that's a compliment, guy. Let's see here. Seems a good starter, but not super starter. Got no hate for Scottie. He's really good. Look, man, at the end of the day, I understand that it's not a conventional pathway. Like him becoming a superstar, it's not obvious, right? Because it's everything he's doing, it's not looking butter smooth. And I think if you just, let me put it this way. Cade Cunningham has been awful. Like awful, right? Everyone has, said it's because he's got a big load to carry. That's why his team's not winning, but he's really great, right? Because he looks great. He looks great when he's playing basketball. Everything looks smooth. Everything looks easy. Everything looks, like the bag looks polished, right? But when you really look at like how much space he's generating, it's not really that great. And if you're really watching Cade, you realize that the writing is kind of on the wall that they picked the wrong guy at number 1. And I think if you watch Cade and Scottie in a pickup game, you would walk away thinking that Cade was like 10 times better, right? And I would understand why you would feel that way, because what Scottie does probably doesn't impress you very much. But I'm telling you this from the perspective of just watching players like Kawhi Leonard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, a lot of players just develop. I've been very keenly interested in, just development stories and how players have grown their game. And the one thing that I look for in all young players is how much space do you generate? So Scottie, some of the moves that he has in the post, they're impossible to guard. Like freaking impossible. That push shot that he has from about 6-7 feet, it doesn't look pretty. It's not perfect, but it's pretty much unguardable. His dribble, hezzy step back, like he could create so much space on that. He has such long arms. He has such a high release. He has such a long stride. The amount of space this guy can carry, his space, like his strength, his shoulder strength, just him as an athlete. Look, I understand it doesn't look pretty to everybody. I gotta be real with you guys. So I had this conversation, and I'm mentioning, like, with somebody who's a little bit close to the Raptors, and prior to that conversation, I was very like worried about Scottie. Not worried like, oh, he's not as good as I thought he was, but worried like will what's happening with this team disrupt what he was supposed to be? And I walked away from that conversation feeling so much better, like really settled inside that this guy's going to get it no matter what. It's going to be like another Jason Tatum situation where, yeah, like Brad Stevens played Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward, these big minutes. They were the older guys. They got all the touches. Jason Tatum had this perceived, slump, but he kept working because at the end of the day, greatness requires a commitment to greatness. And Scottie wants to be great. So I don't think anything's really going to stop him. Yes, Fred VanVleet taking shots away from him right now. Him and Pascal, like, is it a great fit? Some people say yes because of the analytics, but I think from the eye test, it's not an optimal fit. I think I would rather have, rim rollers and guys who move without the ball with him because I think it would just unlock and guys who can actually finish in the paint, man. Come on. Christian Coloco and Chris Boucher just killing Scottie's assist numbers today. But yeah, I walked away from that conversation just feeling very optimistic about what's going on with Scottie. He's aware of it. He knows what's going on. He can see it. He's a really smart young player. And he's just, using this year as a development year. He's just going to grow and develop, and he's going to focus on numbers at some other point in his life. It's obvious to him that he's not going to be able to, play the style of basketball that he wants. And you've seen bursts of him playing the way he wants to play. You've seen the Atlanta game, the San Antonio game. You saw the fourth quarter in Dallas when Pascal Siakam went down. We saw a very different Scottie Barnes. Okay, but at the end of the day, he's not going to hijack the offense. He is a 21-year-old player. This organization has not given him that liberty and said, hey, you got to, we give you free reign, do whatever the hell you want, right? So I think he's just going to bide his time, and I think you're going to see that explosion in the next year, and you're going to suddenly start seeing a guy who's just unstoppable in the post, in the paint, off the dribble, and you're going to be like, I didn't see this coming, and, at that point, I will humbly say, I told you so. I completely agree with that. I really don't know what his value is, but you know what? He is an all-star. I mean, look, if some GM out there feels like Fred VanVleet's not a good player, I want them to get on an hour-long conversation with Jack Armstrong and Alvin Williams and Will Liu. We're gonna make a 4-way phone call, and we're gonna see if that rival GM changes their mind after listening to these guys, just talking about how he's an all-star, superstar level shooter in a shooting slump. Someone wrote the ball moves faster than the man. Where is it? I completely agree. The ball does move faster than the player. Okay, I'm gonna leave a link here, guys, in the comments. If anyone wants to come on for one last one, we do have to end this up really soon. But if anyone wants to come on and say some final words, if you want to have a quick debate with me, if you just want to chime in on what you think is going wrong with the Raptors, I'd love to hear from you. So check the comments for a StreamYard link. And the way this works is you literally just click it, and whether you're on your phone or whether you're on a laptop or whatever, you can just dial in. You don't need any special software. You just get right in. So I'm going to, Leo Nurse is a better coach than, okay. Nurse is a better coach than Casey, but I don't consider him one of the best coaches anymore. Oh, man. I did not like Dwayne Casey. I gotta be honest about that. I was calling for his job like a lot. We got Lane here.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, Lane, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
First and foremost, can I request to get unblocked on Facebook?
What do you mean unblocked on Facebook?
Oh, well, I've been blocked for like 2 years now, but I don't know. I think you blocked me because you thought I was a Scottie hater or something.
How would I have blocked you 2 years ago if you were a Scottie hater? Scottie wasn't even on the Raptors 2 years ago.
Oh, well, I'm thinking of last summer. My fault, dude. Time flies.
Is your last name Burkhart?
No, that's someone else. I'll post something here soon.
Okay, cool. You have any thoughts about tonight's game?
I don't see the Pascal criticism really. I don't understand how it's Pascal's fault. When I would understand if he's shooting near 35-40%, forcing shots, but if the guy's hot, he's hot. He's shooting damn near 50%. Yeah, his 3-point shooting may look skewed tonight, but it's also because he took a lot of buzzer beater threes, and at the end of the game, he just chucked one up for the hell of it. But I do think that the Pascal criticism, I just don't see it at all. Like, I agree Fred needs to play better or get his ass off the team. Barnes, it's there, but not there yet. Like, you could see it. I can see it. I'm a huge Barnes fan. I just got a jersey of his today.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I can see it, but it's not there yet. I know you can see it, and I wish people would stop putting so much pressure on him, saying he's an all-star or he's going to be the superstar or leader of this franchise, because he's not right now. And with all honesty, I do see where people come from saying he's not better than a second-best player on a championship team. I think he's a great complementary piece to a guy such as Pascal. They play great off each other. So that's my only thing with you. I just don't understand the Pascal criticism.
Okay, so I mean, thank you for your comments, and I think that a lot of people in the comments section here, people who frequently watch these videos, feel exactly the way you do. Is that how can you criticize a guy who is playing so damn well? How can you be an analytics based thinker and see somebody at 6.1 box plus minus or 6.2, whatever he's at right now, and just be like, yeah, I want this guy off the team? My beef with Pascal is mainly that I don't think the type of basketball that is played around him, like how he impacts the other players. Now, I know a lot of people say he creates so many great looks for other players, but I find him to be extremely ball dominant. Everything he gets is hard, in my opinion. Every shot, you see the shots that he's taking. You see the shots that other superstars get, like Jason Tatum, like Zion Williamson, Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic. These guys are not taking the same shots. They're not making them at the same rate, but they're definitely not getting the same types of shots. Everything Pascal gets is contested. It's a hand right in his face. It's because he doesn't have the physicality, the skill, the mentality, the intelligence to generate that level of space. And my thing is that I've watched, hundreds of hours of tape on Pascal over the last 2-3 years as the Raptors have experimented with trying to make him into this, heliocentric hub, right? And I just don't see it. I don't think he has the intelligence to play that way. I understand that the skills have come a long way, but the game within the game, like the way superstars know how to get off the ball, find easy touches. Like, there are a lot of superstars out there who get 10 easy points. Pascal doesn't get any easy points. There's nothing really easy other than transition. And I think that here's my thing. You have one of the worst offenses in the NBA. If you looked at this roster, would you say this is one of the worst rosters in the NBA?
Easily not. You just have a bunch of guys not making shots right now.
Okay, so this is a pretty large sample size now. This is over a quarter of a season, right? This is a 500 team with him. It's a 500 team without him. And I don't see another superstar being talked about the way the Toronto Raptors media talk about him that is so unimpacted by their star being there or not. Now, I understand that certain things are going to improve with him there. Obviously, he's one of your more skilled defenders. He's one of your more skilled offensive players, shot getters. I'm not saying that the team is better without him at all. I'm just saying that the role that they are trying to pinhole him into as this heliocentric hub requires a better player. You cannot. So my thing would be, I think Scottie can grow into that type of player. And if you were giving a 21-year-old those reps right now and failing with him, because I think Scottie would fail way worse at Pascal's role than Pascal is failing right now. And you might not even agree that he's failing. But if I am the quarterback or captain of the worst offense or one of the worst offenses in the NBA, I think it's fair to hold me accountable. If LeBron James' Cleveland Cavaliers were the worst offensive team in the league, I think it would be fair to ask, is LeBron James really one of the greatest players of all time? I think that would be fair to ask. How can you be so great and your team be so bad?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that if he wasn't, in my opinion, if he wasn't showing the efficiency that he's showing, and as an advanced metrics guy like you, I mean, the advanced metrics back him up. He's not a number one option. We're never going to win a championship with Pascal as our best player. However, if he went somewhere, let's say like New Orleans, for example, and we make that trade like you were suggesting earlier for like Herb Jones, Dyson Daniels, and they keep CJ, they have Zion, they have JV. Well, I guess they have to throw in JV for salary cap, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? They make that move. The Pelicans win the NBA championship this year. They sweep through the playoffs with Pascal on their team, right? Right next to CJ, right next to Zion, because those guys are bucket makers. The Raptors really don't have anybody right now that they could play off of Pascal, right? Like Barnes is a defer guy. Like, I mean, so is LeBron. LeBron defers first, but LeBron knows when to take his shots. I see some hesitancy in Barnes this year, and that's growing pains. But I mean, when the dude just jumps in the air and when he gets the ball and is trying to throw it up the court and turns it over at least once or twice every game, there's hesitancy there. He's not so confident in himself. Fred's cold. Gary's inconsistent. He's Terrence Ross 2.0. So that's where I defend Pascal is saying, well, sure, he has talent, but he has a bunch of inconsistency around him. If you threw him on a team like the Pelicans, take off Herb Jones, take off Dyson Daniels, take off Jonas Valanciunas, Pascal is one of the best facilitators in the league, and everyone's going to praise him because he's going to get CJ wide open shots. He's going to play off his Zion, and they're going to have a great pick and roll game. I think it's just the guys around him more than him himself. But I mean, you could disagree with me, and I'm sure you do. But that's just the way I see it.
I mean, it's like all these Rico Hines runs where a guy, grabs the ball at the corner of the key and then just drives it into the paint and sucks in like two defenders and kicks it out to a guy for a shot. That's great for Rico Hines runs, but that's not how an NBA offense works. And when your bread and butter is that, I don't know if you caught the part of this conversation where I was talking about bop it as an efficient NBA offense, right? The concept of, pushing a defense to make different decisions and shifting defenses in order to make yourself a little less predictable. Look, when Pascal Siakam gets the ball, I know what he's going to do. Right. It's the same fucking thing every time, right?
He's not a lead option on a championship team. He's
okay.
Been the second.
Okay, so here's the thing. Here's a two-pointer thing. Number one, if he's not, then what are we doing? We're grooming a guy who's seeking a supermax contract, and if he continues to put up these numbers, because we know that the media votes on numbers and not actual impact, then he's probably going to make an All-NBA team, unless we miss the playoffs and end up a lottery team, in which case we won't. And when I hear about Pascal and Fred, et cetera, talk about personal accolades, there's always a bridge that they draw of like, well, if we don't win, I'm not going to be an MVP. If we don't win, I'm not going to be an all-star. So winning, to me, at least, just as an outsider, I'm not a psychoanalyst or whatever, but I listen to these guys. I pay attention to what they're saying. It seems to me that getting paid, individual glory comes first, and team success is just a part of how I can achieve that, because I can't be an all-star or an MVP or an all-NBA guy if my team's in the lottery. That to me is complete opposite of how I saw Kyle and DeMar and Marc Gasol approach the game. That's how I saw Rudy Gay approach the game, and I don't fucking like that shit. Number one. Number two, I think that if you look at the history of the league and you look at how guys get their shot off, really, like, what is Kawhi's advantage right now? What's John Wall's advantage in his prime? What's Derrick Rose's advantage? That's basically what's getting them clean looks. That's what's getting them buckets. That's what's, Ja Morant can float through the air. That's why he finds himself alone at the front of the rim. If he couldn't do that, the level of shooter that he is, maybe he wouldn't be a superstar. So I look at guys like Pascal Siakam throughout the course of history, guys who relied on quickness, positional quickness, to get buckets, and I see a lot of disasters in the 30s. So I don't think that this is a guy who can continue playing this way. There's two things, in my opinion, that help you age well in the NBA. It's shooting and thinking. I don't think Pascal Siakam's that great a shooter. I don't think he's that great a thinker. So, the advantages that he's getting, like, he gets a step on his defender and then he passes out to somebody who's open for a three. By the way, because they're shooting 26% from three, that's why they're open for three. But someone is going to say, well, look, what a crazy great look Pascal Siakam generated, right? Here's the thing. There was a play 2 games ago against the Boston Celtics where OG Anunoby generated a wide open three for Pascal Siakam. Okay. Siakam passed up the wide open three, drove into a double team, and kicked it out to Christian Koloko for a wide open corner three. That, to me, is exactly why Pascal Siakam cannot be your first option. Now, you agree that he's not a first option. I'm just saying he's going to get paid like a superstar, and he's not one. That's my big beef. That's what I'm railing against. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's a top 15 player, top 15, top 16 player. But there are a lot of top 10 to top 15 guys that I wouldn't want to run every single play through the way the Raptors run through him.
Right. And I'm sorry I'm taking so much of your time, but this is response to that. I don't think you can fault Pascal for taking that responsibility upon himself, because we have a hole in our roster right now, and that hole's the number one spot. You can get all the 3-and-D guys in the world. You can get all the 6'8", 6'9", 7'1.5", 8-foot wingspan guys in the world, and you're not going to be able to fill that number one option. I'm a big hockey guy. I'm a big Columbus Blue Jackets fan. Years ago, we went all in when we had Artemi Panarin. We brought in all these guys from different teams, and they left us in the offseason. We swept the Lightning in the first round of the playoffs. All those guys left us, and we were left with the core that we had before we traded for those guys. Granted, that was our most successful season in franchise history, but that core afterwards really couldn't do much. Like, sure, you still had guys like Boone Jenner, who's like a 25 goal. I don't know how much you know hockey like that, but you still had guys like Boone Jenner and Sergei Bobrovsky before he left. You still had those guys from beforehand, but they couldn't hold up the production that the guys like Panarin and all the guys that we traded for had, right? I feel like that's the same way with Siakam, where Siakam's just taking what he's been given, and everyone can acknowledge he's not a number one option. Sure, he's a top 15 player in the league, but he's not.
I don't think everyone agrees with that, Lane. I'm sorry. I hear the broadcasters calling him an MVP candidate. I hear people saying he was on a trajectory for an MVP.
With these numbers, he is, but he's not.
He's not. No, he's not. Come on. An MVP?
With this efficiency. What
efficiency? I'm sorry. Like almost every single, last I checked, the top 10 guys in the league in terms of box plus minus all shoot better than him. All of them. Every single one of them have a true shooting percentage in the low to high 60s. I think there's one exception, and then there's him. Okay, so look, Peja Stojakovic finished 4th in MVP voting one year. I don't think anyone ever considered him a serious MVP candidate. There are not 10 or 11, 12 serious MVP candidates. There are 3 this year. Quite frankly, I mean, really, it's really like a 2-horse race between Jason Tatum and Luka Doncic, and everyone else is going to finish 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Okay. So this is just a marketing tool. This is saying, look, at the end of the day, this is the problem with Toronto sports, in my opinion. Toronto Raptors specifically is, you have a fan base that's still, unfortunately, relatively new to the game. A lot of people flocked in around 2019. They're used to watching a team that's about one guy, which is Kawhi, right? And Kawhi left. So how the hell do you sell this fan base? Most people would probably think, well, I'm not going to watch the Atlanta Hawks, the Kyle Korver, Al Horford Atlanta Hawks, but teams do win like that. That team was very successful. I mean, granted, they weren't super successful in the playoffs, but they won 60-plus games, which is a hell of a lot more than the Raptors are about to win right now. Who was their number one option? They played a very egalitarian offense. I mean, you can look at a lot of teams that have, spread the ball out a little bit. I mean, you could argue for days who was the number one option between Steph and Clay and Kevin Durant. The point is not, like who's the number one option. At the end of the day, isolation scoring is a skill set. Okay. The Utah Jazz have no number one option. They have no number two option. Going into this season, I'm pretty sure you look down that roster, you probably say they don't have a third option, but they're winning. How are they winning? Because Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton and Lauri Markkanen have some isolation scoring skills that they can utilize. You can put it together by parts. Look, I don't think most people thought that when the Raptors traded Rudy Gay that they were going to get better. But that is the trade that was meant to ignite a tank.
It started the
era. And instead they started the We the North era, and they just lived with the lie. That's a lie. That they act like that was like some sort of like stroke of genius. I'm sorry. Right when that move happened, Kyle Lowry was supposed to be traded. He didn't get traded because the Knicks backed out of it. DeMar DeRozan messaged his agent and said, if he's gone, I'm gone. So your entire run of dominance through the We the North era and everything Kyle Lowry built here almost didn't happen. We all owe James Dolan a great deal of thanks. And as an ex-Knicks fan, thank you, James Dolan. You've ruined a lot of my childhood, but thank you for, giving us We the North. Thanks a lot, Lane. I really appreciate it. And I know that we don't agree on Siakam, but thanks a lot for this conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, just one last thing. It's going to get a minute. Going back to my point with like the Blue Jackets and all that, relating it all together, we have a black hole in the number one spot. And I think Siakam's just taking advantage of it, because you take Siakam off this team this season and you could say they're a 500 team, without him. They're not. This is a lottery team without Siakam.
I don't agree. I think if they were healthy, I think they would, behind OG Anunoby developing, I think if Otto Porter was healthy, Thaddeus Young growing into that role of sort of a distributor out of the post, Scottie Barnes ascension, possibly Fred VanVleet not being in the shooting slump that he's in. If he's continues to be in the shooting slump he's in, yeah, maybe you're a lottery team, but I'm sorry, I don't think they're a lottery team. Last year, without him, when he was out, they were really good. They were 7-4 or 6-4 before he came back, and they lost 4 straight. At the end of the day, I think you're a really smart person. I think you understand basketball. I just think that you and I are fundamentally going to disagree on how much Pascal Siakam moves the needle in terms of winning and how well he slots into that number 1 spot. I personally see a far greater hope for OG and Scottie to be better at that thing by the time they are 27, 28. And to be honest, if you have a guy who's 28 right now, who I see declining in his next contract, I'd rather not be the team that has to pay him the next contract. That's just my opinion.
No, right? I see that. I see that. I just see a guy who's been a second option and won a championship before. And if you can get that number 1 guy, which is easier said than done, then we could be a championship team again. But it's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take. I'm not saying trade Scottie Barnes. It's going to take Scottie Barnes. It's going to take Fred. It might take Gary. It's going to take a lot of picks. You're going to have to mortgage future. But I mean, until then, I agree. I think we're a first round exit, second round exit every year with Pascal Siakam, Scottie Barnes, all those guys.
Thanks a lot, Lane.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Thanks, man. If anyone else wants to come on, I know some of you tried to come on while we were having that discussion. I don't want to cut anyone off, so I'm gonna put the link in the comment section there below if you want to come on and have a little conversation here. It is getting a little bit late, so I appreciate all of you who stayed with us. I think this idea of, if not Pascal, then who? This idea of, well, he's the best guy we have for that role. Look, that role doesn't exist on every team. I don't know if you just watched. Have we watched all the other teams? Does Indiana have a guy who does that? Does every team like that plays in the NBA have a guy who does that? Does Steph do this? Does Steph just pound the ball and take turnaround fadeaways? There are very few players in the league who play this way, and they're all better than Siakam at scoring offensively. Okay, like Trae Young is a better scorer than Siakam, and Luka Doncic is a better scorer than Siakam. I'm talking, just general trend. So look, like, I understand the need to stamp a face and say, this is our guy, this is our superstar. And, maybe ticket prices go up. Fan interest goes up when there's a perception that there's a guy who's being celebrated by the league as one of the top names. His value goes up, right? If he's seen as an MVP candidate, right? So, okay, we have Gregory here. We also have Rye Guy. We could potentially have a 3-way conversation between new friends. Hey, Gregory, how are you?
Not bad, Rob. How are you?
I'm great. You have a really great mic and a very cool setup behind you. I love this blue light thing that you got going on. That's sick.
Yeah, man. Thanks very much. Listen, I don't want to really comment much on basketball. What has been said tonight has been great. I just wanted to tell you, like, as a word of support, from the heart, what you're doing is phenomenal.
Wow. Thank you.
And just keep it up. You want to call it contrarian. I call it journalism. Is doing things that other people don't want to print because of PR reasons. And honestly, it deepens my appreciation for the sport, and it's meaningful, and all of us need to connect in a meaningful way. And so I just wanted to just kind of give you a shout out for support. It's not really about basketball techniques, and I don't really have much to add because I actually didn't play basketball. I was a goaltender in hockey, and
Nice.
Basketball was the worst sport I ever played because it's like I can't dance, and there's a lot of moves and stuff like that. It's very technical. So
yeah. Well, I can't skate, so that's great. I moved from the States, and everyone here played hockey, and I was like, it was just me and the ballers, and it's just kind of it's interesting, right? To now talk to hockey fans. I watch a couple of hockey games a year. My girlfriend will watch them a couple times with me, so it's cool.
cool.
I appreciate it. Look, honestly, game theory is game theory. Watching Leo Messi play today, watching soccer, it's a lot of the same concepts come into play in terms of watching the game. So I really appreciate you coming on and saying that.
One last thing. one last thing. Your creative sensibilities are next level. Like you're jumping way up there. So just keep it up, buddy. And honestly, like I think all of us will come and support you.
Man, I don't know how to take compliments.
Me neither.
I'm not the greatest at taking compliments,
No.
but I sincerely appreciate that.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, thank you a lot, man. Thanks for coming
Cheers. on. Yep.
Cheers. Rye guy, are you there?
Hey.
Hey, man.
I am, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt because he was giving you some praise, and you looked a little deflated today. So I, wanted to make, I thought that was really cool to hear that you deserve some praise. I think you do a really good show.
Thank you,
and to be honest, even when I don't agree 100% with you, I still appreciate where your takes are coming from. You often got those analytics to back it up too. And I'm with you on Scottie. I think he's a future potential, all-star guy. I think you just need to set him up with the right people around him. I think right now, because his shot's not really there, I think having people who are good cutters, people who can hit those outside, like the OG, like you see him light up when he plays with OG. You see him even with Delano Banton. You see him light up because Delano, although his shot is okay now, like it's not completely broken. He's hitting that three a little bit more often. His best skill is still driving, and I really love when he does his off ball cutting, because he's one of two or three people on the Raptors who do that off ball cutting on a regular basis. And unfortunately, Juancho, who's injured right now, is kind of that other guy who gives that little bit of that breathing space to have Scottie have those shining moments, those assists, where it's not all dependent on a 3-point shot that's not really falling for the Raptors this year.
Yeah. I mean, look, I completely understand why people are frustrated with Scottie and like the general media and maybe even fans. I understand that there were a lot of people who probably predicting, 20, 22 points per game, and they're seeing, oh my God, 14 something points per game. This is not what we were expecting. But the truth is, like, just be patient with this. I know where this is going. I don't mean to say I'm not wrong. I don't feel any need to really defend my position on him. I think, I think his game will speak for itself. But thanks a lot for coming on, man. And thanks for your comment.
Yeah, for sure. Have a good one.
Have a good one, man. We got Bulldog here. Bulldog, how are you, man?
Spence, what's going on, bud?
I'm good. How are you? You driving?
Yeah, I'm just about to park, man. But I always want to speak with you, because you know exactly what I like what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, you tell the truth about the Raptors. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
And I appreciate that, bro. You know exactly what Fred VanVleet does. You know exactly what Pascal Siakam does. And these guys, they're not true superstars. You know what I mean? And Fred VanVleet, you was a point guard yourself too, Spence, and you know this, right? You was a point guard yourself, and of being a point guard, you're supposed to be able to break down the defense and see, who to pass the ball to, and Fred VanVleet cannot do that, and you know that.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely. You need to know where all the other 9 pieces are, including your team, their team, and truth be told, man, I'm not going to lie to you, I didn't do that well either, and that's why I am so critical of him, because I saw my coach rail my ass to the bench for not being able to do that, because I would break my guy down and then I'd be like, okay, now what? I got past him, now what? And it's like the good guys, like the really good guys that I was playing up against, like at my level, was like Javon Shepherd, guys like that, like, hoopers like that were like being recognized on the national level. Those guys, they knew when they got past their man, they knew exactly who was cutting, they knew exactly who was relocating, and the decisions were like that. With me, there was always an extra second. It took a long time, and now when I play pickup hoops, now I see it, but I'm too old. I'm 35.
That's right. You learn with age. You see it all now. You know what I mean? Like, before, when you're younger,
born like Scottie, right? Like, we're not all born like Scottie. Scottie was making passes in grade 6, grade 7 that I didn't make in high school. Like, he's incredible, right? So that's a gift for the game. It's lateral, like it's court vision, like it's just being able to see everything. But also like a thinking of the game. Like, like when the play that I was talking about with the last guy, Lane, where Siakam passes up an open 3, goes into the paint, and then passes out to Christian Koloko, who hasn't hit a 3 all season. Like, you just turned down a really good shot that your offense generated, and now you're giving this guy a corner 3 with a shot going down. It's like, all of those factors had to go through your head before you make that decision. It's like, and people always say like, oh my God, you're picking on Fred, you're picking on Pascal. You could make a tape like the ones you're making about these guys, about anybody. I was like, bro, I could take all of Kevin Durant's possessions and all his career.
Vince, don't make nobody tell you nothing. You're speaking the truth, bro. I'm a basketball player. I played basketball. I know what it is. And I see these things, bro. You know what I mean? Like whatever you're saying, I'm not dick riding or anything like that. Sorry to use those words, but whatever you're saying, I appreciate you. You sound better than any other blogger out there before. And I've heard bloggers insulting you out there, bro. And I come inside their blog and I said, yo, don't insult the man. He speaks the truth. And some of these fans, they don't know basketball. All they do is watch hockey all day long, and they don't know the game. You know what I mean? So if you don't know the game, you can't understand it. You can't see it. But you see the game, and you play the game, so you understand it. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate it, man. Sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy.
I appreciate you, bro.
I feel like I'm going crazy sometimes because I'll like hear what I'm saying and I'll like see like everyone saying the exact opposite and I'm like, oh my God, am I wrong? But then I'll bounce it off wrong, man. I'll bounce it off a player in the NBA that I know and I'll be like, yo, bro, this is my take on this guy. Do you see this guy the same way? And he'd be like, yup, everyone sees him the same way. And I was like, okay, so I'm not crazy, right? But sometimes you do feel like you're losing your mind, right?
Yeah, so, all players they know. All players they know. Guys that don't know and guys that's around a computer screen all day long watching stats and all that stuff, they don't know because the eye test is the eye test. I'm watching watching these guys play, and I know by watching them play, I know they don't have that skill level. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate
to take you over the top. I appreciate you too, brother.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, brother.
Drive safe. Elton, how are you, man? Audio. Can't hear you.
All right, there. Can you hear me?
There we go. How are you doing, man?
Good. How you doing? I don't have as good of a setup as some of the other guys here, but first and foremost, always appreciate everything that you have to say, and to piggyback off of the previous conversation that you just had, definitely, you know what you're talking about. So whenever you're in doubt, you should really just take a step back and breathe and think. Just remember, most people don't see the game the way you do, which really just means you're hearing a bunch of white noise and they're not able to relate to you. So just take a step back, because I think many of us, including myself, really do appreciate what you have to bring to the table. And it's almost like you should be one of the commentators, if anything. That's often how I feel. And
I would be fired in 12 seconds. Like, honestly, I used to write for Bleacher Report. So yeah, and I've been offered like a lot of jobs in the NBA, like throughout my 20s. Like, I actually walked away from a very, very, very good scouting job with the Portland Trailblazers when I was 22 because my mom died. And I just wanted to be here. I didn't want to go and take this random risk with my life. And to be honest, I've been offered like other jobs, like covering teams and whatever. And there's always this element like within the first interview of like, okay, but these are the things we can't say. And these are the things we can't talk about. And these are the questions you can't ask, the scrums, or we'll lose our, they'll revoke our ability to ask questions because, if you've ever been in one of these scrums, you'll have a director, like a media director, come out and tell you, okay, guys, tonight we're not going to ask any questions about so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. Everybody okay with that? Okay, great. And then, but if you're the asshole reporter who's like, okay, but I'm going to ask that question anyway, you don't get invited back. You lose your press pass. And unfortunately, I don't think that's free journalism. And I've been thinking about ways to do it. Like, and Pensar basketball just felt like the only thing I could do. And it's like I don't know. It's a little YouTube channel. It's, but I'm glad that it has the dedicated following that it does. I've never seen another Raptor channel with this type of comments, like the number of comments, like 600, 500 sometimes comments. I am very deeply appreciative of all of you. I don't necessarily like doing live streams, but I wanted to do one tonight just so I could talk to some of you guys. So thanks a lot. How did you feel about the game tonight?
Quite frankly, I've been quite disgusted in what I've been seeing recently, and I haven't been watching as much. I did tune into the end of the fourth quarter, and it looks exactly like what it has always been. I'm starting to really wonder what is going on in Nick Nurse's head. It's been a few years of the same thing, and at first I was a huge Nick Nurse fan, and I'm pretty much at a point where I can't really make any more excuses anymore. I can't really see how he can look at this type of offense and go, okay, I'm proud of this. There's got to be something that's got to be done. Like the end of the fourth quarter, it was the same thing over and over again, and it just looks bad. I was basically yelling at the TV going, don't shoot every time Fred VanVleet looks like he was wanting to just hoist it for no reason from 28 feet.
Yeah.
And it's just been frustrating.
It is frustrating, but you know what? What's more frustrating for me, and I know this sounds really stupid, but last year, winning against a whole bunch of depleted teams as Fred VanVleet played out of his mind, knowing that would somehow lead to this narrative of him being an all-star and being, and knowing that, like, there's when I was around, like, in the media space, I would listen very intently to certain things. I would watch for certain cues, and certain things that players would say or do would just stick in my mind. And I have Asperger's. So, like, my mind, when it starts honing in on something, I can't stop honing in on that. It just becomes that person is that guy who said that thing. It becomes very tunnel vision. And for me, Fred VanVleet has said so many such things in my life, like that I've heard him say, that just show me that he's about himself. That, like, yeah, he's a good dude. I'm sure he's a really nice guy, but I'll give you an example. I've had 5 interactions with people from Fred VanVleet's life, family members of his, really good friends of his from Rockford, etc. They all hate Scottie. They all talk shit about Scottie. They call me a Scottie dick rider, which is just a comment that I absolutely fucking hate. And they say all these nasty things. I've also had a lot of conversations with people on Scottie's side. I've never heard one bad thing about Fred. Never heard one bad thing about anybody. These types of things, they give you a perspective into who a player is around, what conversations they're having at Thanksgiving dinner, what they must think if they have aligned themselves with these people on a day-to-day basis. They have conversations with somebody who's like literally texting them every day, like, yo, this rook is coming for your spot. So I know how he thinks. I know that he's a self-preserver. And to me, it's like, this is what self-preservers do when given the opportunity, right? Like, he knows that his stats have to look a certain way when he approaches the contract negotiations next offseason. Everything else is secondary. How he's playing, how it's costing his team, how it's impacting the other guys. I think all of that becomes secondary, tertiary. It's just about, like, I got to provide for my family, so I got to do it this way. And I just, growing up in the 90s, I watched a lot of players play this way, and it's just fairly frustrating to watch. And so if Nick Nurse is in on it, interesting parallel, random, Asperger's note. There are three people in this organization that consistently wear their initials on their head. Can you guess who they are?
Well, Fred VanVleet, Nick Nurse, and I thought it was Kyle Lowry before, but
it was, now it's Pascal Siakam.
P.S. Oh, right, yes.
It's like it's a really weird thing. It actually comes down to a story. Like, when I was 10 years old, I lived in New York, and someone gifted me Donald Trump cologne for my birthday, and it smelled like celery, and I absolutely hated it, and I hated him. Like, this is before he ran for president or anything. I just hated the showy nature of his personality, his loud, obnoxious way of being. And I remember asking my dad at the time, it's like, why does he put his name on everything? Why does he feel the need to do that? And he said, children who weren't loved continue to act like children. And so it's just sort of like a narcissism defense mechanism to just put your name on everything, and it's just always been a sort of telltale for me that when somebody wears their initials on their head, on their chain, on their, it's all over the place. It's like, it's just all about them. So if you give that person a chance to have free reign, it's going to be all about them. So I hate to say it, like, I've never been critical of Nick Nurse prior to this year, but this year is really, it's opening my eyes. Because, I mean, really, if that Kawhi shot doesn't go in, he's fired. He gets fired for playing Fred VanVleet, or he's at least on the hot seat for the next year. And it's like, that shot goes in, and there's a story that circulated very widely where after we went down 0-2 against the Bucks and his schemes weren't working, and he came into the locker room and have you heard this story? So he came into the locker room and he said, okay, we're going to have some adjustments for the next game. and Kawhi, who has like very, very, privately voiced a lot of frustration and dismissive a little bit of Nick Nurse and didn't respect him very much. He's like, yeah, the adjustment is I'm guarding Giannis. He just took it on himself. He's like, yeah, we're not letting you lose this championship. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think if you're the Raptors locker room, if you're all these young players patiently waiting, if you're veterans, like Thaddeus Young, Otto Porter, who've been around other coaches, other systems, you see what's going on. And, I know this team had a team meeting. You know what's interesting? When's the last time you remember this team having a team meeting that actually got out to the public?
I can't remember when the last time this happened.
It's literally, I don't think it's ever happened. I mean, I could be wrong. It might have happened once. So the fact that this
Antonio Davis in 2003 when Vince Carter went down?
It could have been around there, yeah. But I mean,
the Pistons that year.
Yeah, but I mean, like, look at the organization back then. Like, there was complete disarray, right? Everything. Richard Petty. It was a complete joke. And to anyone out there who says I'm not a Raptors fan, God damn it. Richard Petty, okay? I sat through that shit for like many years to get to the promised land, okay? So don't tell me that I follow this team. But yeah, like, I mean, it's very weird that shit like this is leaking to the media now. And I got to look at that and say, who's doing it? Because the Raptors, like, Woj doesn't even know who they're drafting every year. No one knows who they're drafting. This is one of the most leak-proof organizations in the league. And they had a team meeting behind closed doors, and it got to the media that night. Something's wrong. So,
well, I think the for the first time, a lot of fans are starting to get really, really frustrated. It's been quite a few years where it's been this down in terms of where our trajectory is, especially with a little bit more of upside coming into this year with Scottie and Precious, but it hasn't looked that way right now. And I think the media is just trying to hold on to this ship, and they're really trying to pump up all the propaganda that they can to keep, and obviously as a business continue to sell tickets. But I think if I'm Masai, something needs to be done at this point. I don't think he's always stood back and let whatever happened, and relatively quiet, in terms of the trade deadlines and whatnot, except for the 1 year, and with Marc Gasol and also Kawhi. I think he needs to do something at this point, because Nick Nurse is just running the same things over and over again, and it's just not working. And I'm quite critical of him now. I didn't think I would ever be, but I guess maybe you and I feel the same way. We've been feeling the effects of winning the championship, and we've kind of just turned a blind eye over Nick Nurse and what he's been doing for so long. But now it's starting to really catch up.
Honestly, I think for me, it wasn't necessarily about the championship. I understand, like, I'm not someone who values championships a lot. I know that's pretty much a hot take around these channels, but I don't care. There's plenty of great teams in NBA history that didn't win a championship that I think are better than a lot of teams that did win a championship. It's all about timing, luck. Everyone in Toronto can pretend that it was some divine prophecy that you were going to trade for this guy and win a championship. And the Raptors did everything right to help them out. They, made sure that they smoothed over the chemistry issues with Kyle. They made a very, very, win now move by trading for Marc Gasol, which I do believe was imperative to them actually winning. They load managed Kawhi. They worked with his team. They did everything. And, opportunity and luck go hand in hand, and, preparedness and opportunity and luck go hand in hand. And they prepared correctly, and they did everything possible. And they went through a very tough, Philly team and a very tough Bucks team. I looked at the analytics for that year. There were literally 3 teams that could win a championship that year, per the stats and analytics that year. If you were a betting person, it was the Raptors, the Bucks, and the Warriors, and the Raptors faced both of those teams. So it's not like they had some easy ride. And to be honest, most of my praise for Nick Nurse is just because I couldn't stand Sam Mitchell, and I couldn't stand Dwayne Casey, and I couldn't stand Jay Triano. The last Raptors coach that I actually liked was one that I knew, which was Kevin O'Neill. And I'd met him like a few times. He had worked with me on my defense, and I loved him, and everyone hated him. Everyone but me hated him. Everyone thought he was such an asshole. He was always drinking Diet Coke, and everyone thought he was the worst person on earth. And I think recently he did some really horrible shit, so maybe I shouldn't be saying that I really liked him. But yeah, I think he was the last coach that I really liked on the Raptors. Lenny Wilkins was just so over it when he was here. So really, like, it was Butch Carter to some extent, Kevin O'Neill just for me, and then it's been Nick Nurse. This has not been a great coached, it's not like I just hate all coaches. I like at least 15 coaches in the NBA right now. So I just think that it's been sort of unfortunate. And for me, like, to be very critical of a good coach like Nick Nurse, just felt maybe like, oh, well, if you lose him, you're going to end up with another Sam Mitchell. So, but I don't think it's a bad thing for the media to be able to be critical. I think it's actually a terrible thing when the media is put on a gag order. And to be honest, I think to some extent, I think the media is just an extended mouthpiece for MLSE right now, and Fred specifically, because, he's the great quote. And that's one thing I've realized is get cozy with the media if you want a smooth experience in the NBA. And Kevin Durant has learned this the hard way. Kyrie Irving has learned this the hard way. In the OKC Thunder, like, the way they condition them, like, I think, like, when young players come into the NBA, they all go through media training. And the OKC Thunder had a very combative and adversarial relationship with the Oklahoma media. And so all of those guys, from James Harden to Russell Westbrook, you'll notice that they all have, like, flare-ups with the media. They all have been kind of weird with the media, right? And people in their orbit and circle are kind of like that too. And to be honest, like, Kevin Durant will never get his due, because the same media members that he's pissed off right now are the same people writing slanderous articles about him, are the same people who are not going to vote on him to, make certain selection teams or whatever. Now, obviously, you can't keep him off the top 75 because he's so great and he made it. But there are a lot of players that are very, very good players, like Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard had a terrible relationship with the media after leaving LA. And, that Orlando issue and how he exited, he should absolutely be a top 75 player. He's like a 3 or 4 time defensive player of the year, took his team to the championship, won a championship, but he's not going to make the top 75. He's not going to make 100. They just have carte blanche, man. They can rewrite your fucking entire career by just voting you out of shit. They can rewrite your career by voting you to the All-NBA team. If Pascal Siakam is cozy with the media, suddenly the media people are friends with the guys at the Ringer. They're friends with the guys at LA Times. They're friends with, these guys and that guys. And they'll all text and be like, oh, Pascal Siakam, vote for this guy. I'll vote for your guy. Man, it's sick. The whole thing is kind of sick, to be honest. And people who say, like, oh my God, Rob, you're being too candid. You're never going to get a press pass. I know I'm never going to get a press pass. Don't worry, man. This channel could have 1 million followers and I would still never get a press pass. And that's okay. Because at some point, I know that Pensar Basketball is going to be home to one-on-one podcasts with NBA players. I've already talked to a lot of NBA players, like, well, not a lot, but a few NBA players who would be interested once we have, like, a bigger following. And they just, they appreciate the truth. So, yeah, and I'm glad you do too.
I think JJ Redick would definitely, fit that type of mold. He seems to want to, speak the truth a little bit more.
He's a big Fred VanVleet supporter, though. He's huge. He got so mad when somebody suggested on ESPN that the Raptors look better in the playoffs without Fred VanVleet because they're bigger and they can defend better. And he was just like, this is preposterous. Fred VanVleet's an excellent defender. And he's not wrong. Fred VanVleet is an awesome defender. It's just, I think maybe part of the equation that he was missing is Fred VanVleet was very injured. So, but yeah, it's interesting. I would love to talk with JJ. I think he's a bit of an asshole. I kind of appreciate that about him. But I think, like, just, I don't know, man. Like, my dream, honestly, is to talk to Rasheed Wallace. That would be my dream. Rasheed, Vince, Latrell Sprewell can't choke me over the, he I think, like, there's so many players that I would love to talk to, and I hope Pensar Basketball becomes a way to do that with players, definitely. Coaches, scouts, etc. And to be able to have those deep conversations with them about like the truth behind stuff, and be able to ask them intelligent questions. Like, every time I've seen, like, one of my heroes interviewed by somebody, and I'm like, please ask them this, and they never ask them that, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll just create a channel and ask them myself. So anyways, man, thanks a lot for staying with us. Thanks to everybody who stayed with us. This is so late, and this went way longer than I thought it would. Maybe I should do this again sometime. I don't know, but
yeah, you should definitely do this again.
This was really fun. Thanks to everyone who came on. Thanks for everyone who commented. I'm sorry I missed a lot of these comments. Yeah, but I will make sure to go read them later. Peace. Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody. Yeah, sorry, I really overtalked. I really overtalked there. Don't get why Fred Van is compared to the same tier as Pascal in here. Fred is DeRozan's selfish ball hog. Well, Jesus, wow. You know, if you ever had a chance to talk to DeMar DeRozan, you would realize he's one of the least selfish people on earth. The DeMar slander should stop. That guy like loved this team. He did a lot for this team, and yeah, anyone who slanders Kawhi, like y'all can miss me with that too, because that's just sad. Have a good night, guys. I hope for honest reporting tomorrow. Let me know in the comments, maybe, you know, because I don't follow a lot of these guys. Let me know what people are saying and stuff. Have a good night, man. Good night. Good night. Good night. Peace, guys.